Snap out of it, buddy. I need you.
Oh man, you can have your suit back.
All right, so quick pre-ramble, right? We always do this as it is a retrospect review. We had to talk about, where we were and how we felt when we first saw, those films, right? So we started off with Iron Man 2. I saw it in 2010. I was in UE at the time.
Right.
All right, so this of course is right after, what we got with this is the third MCU film, I should say, right? So of course, we got Iron Man in 2008, Ricardo and I, we did a retrospect review of that before. And then after that there was the Incredible Hulk, which was all right.
Right,
But
fine. Yeah.
not a show that I've revisited, to be honest. I only saw it once in theaters. It's like, okay, I think maybe I saw it once again. Sorry, probably watch it again. But that is like one of the few MCU films that I have no reason to rewatch at all. Like, I just got the point. It's like, all right, Edward Norton, okay. And that was it, right?
Except if you want to watch She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Kinda.
And even with the new Captain America.
Oh yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, with Liv Tyler and all that stuff, right? But yeah, Iron Man 2, I remember the hype was big for it. I mean, for one thing, it is the sequel to Iron Man, right? Which is a movie that I don't think a lot of people expect it to be that great, right? But it was, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And for one thing, one of the big sells of the movie was Mickey Rourke as War Machine won,
right.
more Mickey Rourke as
right, because you're just coming off of
the wrestler
Oscar nomination.
Yes.
Right, wrestler, an Oscar nomination, which I still to this day think he should have won. That was a big hype too. So it's like, oh, they get this big actor to come through. He having his own renaissance as an actor coming through. It's like, yeah, working thing. Hot take. Here's my hot take before we start. If Iron Man 2 wasn't as bad as it was, the MCU as a whole wouldn't have been as good as it was. All right, in my humble opinion.
Okay,
because
isn't that just the MCU had to understand? Hey, not all our movies are gonna be hits. We have to take L's. So
not so much that, but all of the mistakes in Iron Man 2 is avoided, very actively avoided in the rest of the films, in terms of like, all right, this is how you reference this is how you bounce off of that, this is what you do as a sequel, this is what you do in terms of pacing. This movie had to be the bubbly, to take the licks and avoid all the mistakes. So the other films they just had to take this and evolve from this now. That's how I kind of see this film. Like, this film is like every mistake they just avoided going forward. Like, the other films not masterpieces or anything like that, but even like the mediocre films avoid the mistakes this films make, because they just learn that lesson and then lock in and say, look, keep the head on a swivel and don't make these types of mistakes. I still to this day consider Iron Man 2 pound for pound one of the weakest of the MCU, right? It's only really Thor 2 and maybe Thor 4. Like, still real low for me. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually think Thor: The Dark World is actually worse than Iron Man 2, but we could debate that.
All right, and I am the one who thinks that The Dark World is better than Iron Man 2. But
the thing is because Thor 1 wasn't super great for me. Thor 2 being not that great either was like, is the jump in quality. Iron Man 2 had such a drop in quality for me compared to the first film. It's like, wow, what the hell is this? Like, it was like, and I was genuinely worried for the MCU at this point. It's like, oh, well, this experiment kind of failed already. Like, I remember just thinking that at the time. Then they just rally. I'm in the camp that enjoyed the first Captain America. It's like, all right, well, that was good. And then, they just give us the juggernaut that was the Avengers that pretty much shaped the decade after that, right? So is one of those films that had to make all the mistakes they made. Don't put in too much material too fast. Because when I think about it, there's another film that comes, there's another film that's very similar to this, and I consider that film one of the worst films of the decade, and not only that, one of the worst films ever, in my working experience as a film watcher. Batman v Superman, right? Put too much bullshit. And this film had too much bullshit, right? Shield, and this, and like, if you just focus on a couple things, a couple ideas, chill back and think, then you take. But because Iron Man is a low stakes character for a lot of people, at least, they don't really care. It's like, oh, it's just a big disappointment compared to the first one. Got that right action scene sequence at the end with the drones. That's kind of cool. Justin Hammer was kind of funny, especially with Sam Rockwell doing his
Yeah.
James Brown dancing. That funny.
Yeah,
It's him-
I
it's
forgot
him
about that.
dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's him dancing from Charlie's Angels, right? He could dance, right? And he's always put out his movies all the time. But yeah, there's a film.
Can I just say? Can I
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say? Can I just say? It's also really weird to go back and rewatch this film right after I saw him in The White Lotus.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, he
Wow.
was in
Yeah.
that. Okay, I have not
Yeah,
jumped on that train as yet, but I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, this film is like one of those films that just, to me, just had to make all those mistakes so they don't make the mistakes going forward. Because the reason why the MCU one is so successful as it was, and it flows really well, because that kind of weird narrative discordance was the end of a particular paradigm in not only in Hollywood but in comic book films. This movie is the actual, I would argue, the actual transition of, okay, we're not going to be fucking up superhero movies like how we was doing in the early 2000s anymore. Them days done. Time to really hit the gas on this and make it work and say, all right, we're not gonna be making these mistakes. And pretty much once after Avengers happened, because like that was the plan, and then they started like rehauling the narrative. Yeah, phase 2 of the MCU is like really good. Like for me, in terms of just building up towards phase 3 and just giving us good stuff. It's like, wow, they just had a consistent flow of material, and that's when they started making them literally started making the big bucks at that point now. And I think this is the film that had to be the guinea pig for the most part. This film had to kind of fail, for lack of a better term. And I say fail in quotes, but it still made a ton of cash. Like it was fine. But like this had to, like, from a comic book standpoint, for me at least as a fan, this had to like flounder and fail. And if it didn't fail, we want to get, it's a kind of lost leader kind of thing. It had to take the hit so the future stuff could be better. That's how I feel about this film. And I still think this is one of the weakest films, especially compared to the first one. But yeah, so we could start with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you, I wasn't massively disappointed by Iron Man 2, right? But yeah, when I first saw it in the theaters, I just sort of came out like, wow, but like we went from the greatness of Iron Man to this unfocused,
Yeah.
I don't want to call it a mess, but just
I call it a mess.
just unfocused film that was Iron Man 2, right? I do remember watching it probably one more time when it was on Stars, because Stars used to show a lot of these like MCU films, right? And then that was just it. Like maybe I caught it one more time in my life, but before actually recapping it for this episode here, right? Or for this show here, sorry. But yeah, it's just a show that where I remember things, but just things that could have been so much better. That's the best way I could sum it up. It's not like a completely forgettable film, but it's just moments where I think about like, wow, they really could have just done this so much better. And just to wrap things up, is because of just the massive hype surrounding it, right?
Yep.
So I will touch on some of the hype moments in, while I do the retrospect part of the review part, of this retrospect.
Yeah, I mean, because visually it looked great. They had a couple of cool like conceits in it. Like, I think the suit is cool. Everything involving War Machine is cool. Talk about a massive step up in terms of the actor they got for War Machine. Like, to move from what's his name? I forget his name already, but
Terrence Howard, right? Terrence Howard, Maine.
Right, Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle is complete chalk and cheese. Because one, in my humble opinion, like John Cheadle is a way superior actor. Not even close. Not even close. And then, Don Cheadle looked closer to the War Machine from the comics. So it's like, all right, well, it's a win-win right there. Like, I don't know what's the problem exactly. Like, people really need that concept.
Dude, what's so funny is that I don't think people were even offended or taken aback that Don Cheadle played James Rhodes. I don't think so.
Once I hear the news, I was like, all right, well, yeah, that's a step up, though. Total upgrade.
But Daniel, you could make your point, and then you could just give your thoughts on when you first saw the film, and then we'll jump to Ricardo. So yeah, Daniel, make your point, and then jump into your thoughts.
Yeah, my problem with Terrence Howard is the voice. It's like when you put him in the War Machine, in the War Machine suit, it's like a voice coming out of that suit of armor, like that not matching for me. But yeah, when I first saw Iron Man 2, I was in high school, and I remember like walking out of the film not being too terribly disappointed, because I mean, I was a kid, I got my superhero fix. It's like, all right, cool, but and it's like, I was a real, like, stubborn kid, so I remember my mom telling me, okay, so you saw your movie, go back and study. All these years later, looking back on Iron Man 2, is like, yeah, Iron Man 2 is a massive step down from the most excellent Iron Man 1, 8 out of 10 movie. Iron Man 1, 8 out of 10.
Right.
And this one is like, yeah, the same problem that you have, Ricardo, is the same problem I have. They try to stuff way too much stuff into this movie, especially the Shield stuff. Like the
Right.
Shield stuff really felt unnecessary. It just honestly felt like setup for the future films, and it's like, come on, what we could have been focusing on so many other more compelling things in Iron Man 2 than the Shield stuff. It's like, and they had such potential with Mickey Rourke's character Ivan Vanko. It's like I wanted to see more of him, develop him more as a villain. They could have this. I think that was my main issue with this film. Rewatching it after all these years, it's just wasted potential. That's just that sums up my feelings, and we could probably get more into them as we go along talking about it.
Right. And last but not least, yeah, Ricardo, your theatrical experience watching Iron Man 2.
Yeah, just again, ton of hype. You could probably find old Facebook posts on me complaining about it. Going into this thinking, all right, we're gonna get some real hard, and then yeah, we just get this mess of a film. I swear I remember like listening to like either spill.com or whatever them fellas back in the days about this and how much of a mess it is. I just remember thinking, watching the movie, and it had a moment. The moment you probably know it is when Tony get drunk and he start peeing his pants. Or and then it like he and Rhodey get the suit too, and the two of them start a fight. Like, what's going on here, Joe? This is a mess. Like it's absolute nonsense, right? It's a real clumsy script. The core idea is not bad because, like, again, it's revenge kind of, Howard Stark being kind of trash and that being revealed. But then even the big moments fall completely flat. So like when he discover the element thing and you see him spread out the thing as this supposed to be some big moment.
It's
And I
really
remember just
moment.
I remember this. I remember everybody in the theater just dead quiet after that. Like that's supposed to be a big scene. All right. Right, they say so. Like nothing was working for this with this movie for me. But the action is not bad. Like the stuff at the end is great. Like especially when Rhodey start engaging in combat. The sad part is that we watch all that shit in the trailer. Sorry, that's the problem. So it's like you kind of don't care that we see it already. So it had no hyper surprises. They show everything in the marketing and the trailer. What do you call it, boy? Like the suitcase suit look great. And then here's another thing. I don't try to get into politics or anything like that, but yeah, Elon Musk was in this movie, so like a -1.1 time they put.
Dude, I was shocked when I see that. I was like, what? I didn't even know that.
No, at the time, we was real hyping up Peter as a person who was like worth your time, but no, right? So moving on.
Yeah, for real. Nah, but I was legit shocked when I see that though, because I wasn't familiar with him, to be honest, right? When that movie dropped, right? But anyway, so speaking of that, amazing script that was written for this film, right? I was a few days old when I realized that this movie was written by Justin Theroux. Who is
Right, okay.
Yeah, well, I remember him as one of the actors from Mulholland Drive, from the late great David Lynch, R.I.P.
Yeah, for me it's the staff leftovers.
Oh, he was in that. Okay, word. All right, I didn't know that, right? Yeah, and didn't know this, but he also co-wrote Tropic Thunder, which was one of my favorite comedies of the 2000s, right? It's thanks to that film that Robert Downey Jr. was like, hey, let me bring in this guy to do the Iron Man 2 script now. And Feige, Feige, was like, all right, cool. And, well, we got this, right? Now, I will say, right, if the movie starts out strong. I should just mention, folks, it's not going to be a breakdown of every single thing that happened, right? Because, it's Iron Man 2, right? I'm sorry. But, yeah, it starts off strong where you see Ivan Vanko, who is played by Mickey Rourke, and we learn that he's the son of Anton Vanko, who worked with Howard Stark back in the days. Yeah, you see him building his own, what we assume is an Iron Man suit, but we'll see eventually what it is, right? And you see he built an arc reactor as well, right? So I like that, right? It was this scene was in the in the advertising of it, but it looked cool when you see it in the film itself. Yeah, where you see Tony Stark / Iron Man for the first time, right? Where he's on the plane and he jumps off and you hear the rock song in the background.
Right, I can't remember.
Long take thing where he drops onto the stage, and that was cool.
Right, I can't remember if the whole she kissing the helmet and her throwing off the helmet. What happened exactly with that? That was taken out, right?
That wasn't there. Oh, okay. Yeah, because in the movie, it just starts with him in the suit and he just jumps on the plane and that's it, right? But yeah, you know, when he jump onto the stage and you see it's Stark Expo, so he land right in the middle of the stage and then, the fireworks and the American flag. that's all cool, and it's
Right.
what I will say in retrospect, what I admire about that moment is that it reflects what we will see with Captain America: The First Avenger, with Steve being a propaganda figure. So it's like, hey, they both about America, man, and all that kind of stuff, right? That's cool, right?
Another retrospect thing. Well, you see, we'll get to that at the ending, because so this whole Howard Stark Expo thing reference the same expo from Captain America, right?
Yes, I noticed that. Yes.
Right. Same event, right? Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. That was really cool that we actually see it later on in the First Avenger, right?
Right.
So back to speaking of Sam Rockwell, right? He plays Justin Hammer. He's the CEO of Hammer Industries. I like that. He builds on one of the film's conceits, which is just, the Iron Man suit should be in the care of the Department of Defense, right?
Right.
Yeah, so to them it's a weapon, and they need to keep it, and it shouldn't be in the hands of the creator. I like that. I like that.
What the setup is, well, you saw who was revealed to be a Hydra agent later, Gary Shandling, right?
Yes, I was surprised. Stern.
Senator something. Right.
Yeah.
So they set that up. Yeah, they set that up, and it's like, okay, good. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, that was really cool, because I forgot about that whole court trial thing that happens afterwards, and Senator Stern was like, yeah, you need to give up the suit, and I do like character wise, right? Robert, this is just the beginning, folks. Yeah, where Tony's at, his head is overinflated now. So it's like, yeah, look, I save in the world, bro. And man, like, look, I am doing y'all a favor. I like that he is so full of himself. He talk about how he is doing America a favor. Actually, like, there's a line, a great line actually, where he says, "I've successfully privatized world peace." Then he does the whole Nixon peace signs. I like that. That is nice character setup. That's great, right?
Right.
So,
and then they do a great little meta gag with him introducing when Rhodey show up.
Yes.
He says something like deal with it.
Deal with it.
Right. That's it. In and out. That's how you had to do that.
Yeah. So that was really cool.
What
right?
I will also say is that for the beginning of this movie, it moves like really fast, because
I would agree. Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
It's funny, yeah.
The beginning just moves like really fast, because there's a lot you had to set up. You had to set up Ivan, you had to set up the Stark Expo, set up the government wanting Iron Man's tech. You had to set up a Natasha Romanoff, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, there's a lot of things. Justin Hammer, a lot of things to set up here.
Yeah.
So
now
it moves at a brisk pace.
Yes, it does. Now speaking of Natasha Romanoff, right? Played by the always lovely Scarlett Johansson, right? So she's introduced as Natalie Rushman, right? So basically, it's set up that Pepper Potts could be the one who's running Stark Industries, right? So basically Tony's assistant going forward will be Natalie, right? But just the setup of it makes no sense, right? So it's set up where you're seeing Tony and Happy, right? Played by Jon Favreau, sparring in his boxing ring, right? All of a sudden, Natalie come, and of course, the two men in the room stop and stare at she, and I don't blame them, right? But just the mere fact that Tony pretty much tells you to go into the ring to fight
that whole beat didn't make sense.
No sense.
I didn't get why you did that.
No, to the screenwriter's credit. No, I'm assuming, right, that the screenwriter, as in Justin Theroux, was thinking, well, we need to show that Scarlett could fight, so we need to let the people know that she actually is a black widow. It's like, no, you don't need to show that now, dude. Come on.
Favreau really come across a little thirsty in this, because you get Scarlett Johansson to wrap your legs around your neck, and there's a great funny there's a meme about this. I assure you, dear viewer, that this is intricate to the plot, right? Right, nice. Good. They have another scene with her having to undress in front of him.
Yes, that's the two dark ideas. Like clearly he did that just so he could be in a scene with with Scarlett, right? Doing that.
Once again. Yeah, go ahead.
In the next film that Favreau would make, Chef, wasn't she his girlfriend?
Yep. Yeah. It's like,
all right. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Right.
All right, Fab. But that's it. I mean, the scene is just a setup that she's a badass, and then so when they reveal that later, that won't surprise you, but it's like it's very clumsy foreshadowing. Let's admit that, yeah.
It is, right? And, just to sell the fact that, she hot, right? So it have a moment where you see Tony going up online and looking up some modeling scene shots, like, oh, she took that in Tokyo. Oh, ooh, you know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, you're hired, right? Because she actually kick Happy ass, right?
Right.
Okay.
And he say, I want one, that joke. Okay.
I want one, yeah.
Yeah.
I want one.
Okay, I get, because, Tony's,
Right.
still, high of you in success, right? And we get, right? Okay. So, of course, one of the most memorable set pieces, and yes, it was advertised as hell, yes, is the Monaco Grand Prix scene, right?
Right.
Of course, the big moment, of course, is when you see Whiplash, right? Of course, not to be confused with the 2014 masterpiece that is Whiplash, right? One of the best films of the past decade, right? But mad points for the moment where you see he walking and he have the sort of repairman outfit on, and you see it burn off, like you see from the back there, like the shirt itself burns off because of the Whiplash suit that he has on. And you realize, oh, that's the suit that he's working on all the time, right? Now, in retrospect, right? Because of the advertisers surrounding it, sorry. Yes, the moment where you see him with the whips look cooler. But then it's like, you just had to stop and realize, but wait now, but that's all this man have going for him. He have these electrical whips, and he just uses them, right?
Yeah,
Go on.
Here's the obvious problem.
And he sliced off a speeding car.
Yeah, which
like,
looked cool. It looked cool. It did look cooler. Yeah, it did. Design-wise, I actually like that outfit, that exosuit that Ivan wears, right? I like that it has this sort of Roman gladiator kind of look to it, you know what I mean? With, with the arms being exposed and all that kind of stuff. I like that, right? Remember, it's Mickey Rourke going off of his success with the wrestlers, right? So he had to show off them pecs a little bit more, right? So I like that, right? And yes, I like that, he sliced one of the cars and flip and it crash and super slow-mo and whatnot. Happy shows up with the suitcase suit and all that. That's cool. But I forgot that there was a moment where Happy literally run into Whiplash like 4 times. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, that happened?
Yeah.
That happened? Yeah. Okay, I did not even know that, right? But yeah,
one thing I also want to say is like, in terms of the script, it's like you could tell that they were working with a very I don't even know if they had a script, honestly, based on the way that people were talking over each other in earlier scenes.
Yeah, a lot of quipping and ad-libbing. I noticed that. Yes. Yeah, but before Happy, try to mow down the guy like 4 times. Yes, there's the moment that we saw in all them trailers. Yes, where Whiplash literally whips Tony's car, right? And yes, it flip and it crash and it looks dope, right? It really looks dope, right? Whiplash even have his own walk away from an explosion in slow-mo moment, right? Because, there's this one car that stops midway and then 2 cars run into that and then this makes this big explosion. They see Whiplash walk away from it. It's like, all right, yeah, it looked cool. It looked cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I won't lie, right? Well, that's all. So, as a wrap up here, right? So, minor nitpick, right? Yes, the suit that fits onto Tony's body is badass, right? That sort of ready-made Iron Man suit. I like it, right? I like the silver coating on it. In particular, because it's meant to be different from the gold coating that we know from him, right? But while I don't mind the fact that it takes him about 10 to 15 seconds to armor up, right? Whiplash could like attack him like during that fitting moment, right? He just literally kind of stands there and waits for him to change the clothes. Like, oh my God, look at how is he doing that? Wow. No, how are you doing this? What? You know what I mean? He could have he could have hit him, but no, he just stand up and watch.
He had to wait for his nemesis to get ready. Like, okay, you ready now? Okay, let's have this badass fight.
Yeah. And then the fight itself do even last long. It's just like boom, 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 and that's it, the end, and that's that, right? But yeah, in retrospect, Daniel, what do you think about that whole Grand Prix Whiplash making his appearance known, whipping cars in half moment? What do you think?
I mean, it's a superhero movie. I guess that's basically all I can say about it. You need to have your action sequences, and you know what? I got my fill, but minus the logic behind everything. It's like, the hell with logic. Just let's have our superhero fun.
Yeah, that's true. Another nitpick with this, right? So I actually, in retrospect, find this moment to be shoehorned. So Tony, because you're not thinking about it when you see the trailers, right? You know, you're watching the film and you kind of see the story play out, right? So Tony just ups and decides to just take a race car driver's place. He just butts himself into the race itself, right? I felt like the reasoning why Tony's in this race makes no sense, right? So because you realize that your blood toxicity reason because of the whole arc reactor use, all that kind of stuff, you just go on onto the racetrack tread and tell the American driver basically to fuck off, and you just take the man place and you drive him because you just suddenly have this YOLO mindset all of a sudden. He just butts into the race though, and it's just all to give us an excuse for Whiplash to like slice the man car in half, right? And last point I just want to make, right? It's not like there were screens about, so we would have known. Yes, the people inside the casino, wherever it is, right, where Elon Musk was, would have seen, Tony Stark jumped into the race, blah blah blah, right? But it's not like Whiplash would have seen this going on and realized, oh shit, that's Tony. Let me take my shot. Because he just kind of casually, suddenly just sort of comes out to the racetrack, almost like he realized last minute, oh wow, Tony's in the race, I'm gonna kill him. But then, why was he there in the first place? Like, I understand he was tracking him down, okay, right? But how would he have known that Tony was in the race to begin with? I don't know. They shouldn't make it clear to me.
One of the simple. Okay, so again, I can't remember if the movie addresses this. I don't rewatch it. I shall rewatch it to find this detail. But yeah, why you gotta shoot Whiplash in the back, however? Most of his body's exposed.
That's true. That's true.
Does your arc reactor have some force field or something? I couldn't remember. Like,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah.
I was saying, Iron Man has a whole Iron Man suit. That's why bullets will hurt him. Like, I mean, why did you just send police to him? Whatever. It does.
Yeah, exactly. But before we move on, so Ricardo, your thoughts on this whole Grand Prix Whiplash intro suitcase scene?
This was just like a dumb scene because, again, you mentioned it when I just catch on to that. Yeah, why is it that he take over and how would Whiplash know who he is? Was he watching him the entire time? It's clumsy stuff just to get him. The suitcase thing look cool, but that's about it. I mean, that's about it. It was just silly. And again, it's just Gwyneth Paltrow and Scarlett Johansson walking up to the camera watching, showing their ass. That's the point of that whole section. Like, it's a silly scene. Like, the whole scene with the fight to get there just to look cool. So they kind of shoot him. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Whiplash, they could just snipe him. They could easily snipe him. Just get a sniper. Hey, that was crazy. Do some weird technology. Shoot him, man.
Yeah. And even if the people were like overwhelmed, right, by the electrical whips and the noise that it makes, right? Because it is kind of intimidating when you see him do the whip like wow. But still, gunning man down, Trent,
Yeah, it's a bunch of rich people in I mean, they have a ton of security, wherever it is. I couldn't follow. Like, again, I sure it had details to show why somebody can just snipe him, But so nice about it. So the little things like that would just bother me. Like, it really feel like a clumsy script that didn't make a lick of sense.
Yeah. So moving forward, right? So
just needed that superhero action without any logic attached to it.
Nope. No. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, surprise, Johnny Hammer make his presence known because he is the villain, which I had a problem with. I had a major problem there, but I'll get to that later. Yeah, where he just basically organized the breakout of Whiplash from prison, and then you basically have Whiplash working alongside him to kind of pretty much rub out Tony, right? Because they set up a on that. There's a rivalry going on between Tony and Justin, right? And Johnny, right? Justin. I seen Johnny, right? Sorry about that. Justin. Yeah. Basically wanted to be the big, weapons or tech guy, right? That's what it is, right?
Right. Well, we don't talk about how Tony embarrassed him initially in the starting. So like, how
right. Which is kind of a cool moment where the man just basically like hack it. What you do by he pulled up a video where you see Justin was testing out his Iron Man suits. Right,
and it failed, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And they show worldwide a bunch of people trying suits out. It effing it up. Tony put it off, right? And it's a good little piece of world building. The setup is a genius, blah blah blah. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. So we had to talk about, for me, the scene that just this moment scarred me for life because I did not go into Iron Man 2 expecting this. We had to talk about that party scene, boy.
Yeah, dumb.
This is still rough to watch. It was rough to see the first time, and when I saw it, in preparation for this, I kind of squirmed in my seat like, boy, why are we doing this, Fred? Why?
Yeah. It's real cringe.
Tony by the DJ booth. Sorry, by the DJ turntable. Sorry, doing the scratches for California Love. Him peeing in his suit. Him using the repulsor ways.
dying.
So,
He's dying. Just let him live life to the fullest.
I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they could have
Like, I
showed
get-
that in a better way, man. Like I get you want to
Yeah,
show
because
that he's a rich millionaire who full of shit. So he drowns his misery with festivities and alcohol. I get, but he could have done this much smoother, man. Like not this.
Right.
What is this, man?
Because a big part of this is supposed to be the whole demon on a bottle thing. There's always allude to. They never really lean into it too much. Like they kind of try to do it with part 3 a little bit, but like he's supposed to have an alcoholic problem. They're playing with that kind of, but then they do it with the whole. What is the platinum? I forget what it is that poisoning him, but the metal that he's using.
It's some blood toxicity.
Palladium.
It's from
Palladium,
the whole
palladium.
palladium, right? Yeah, from the
Palladium, right.
yeah.
Right. So it killing him. He it's not a permanent solution. He had to figure out something. Blah blah blah. And so like, all right, they're making it work for what it is, and I get it. It's that kind of depression, all that effort, and he's still dead. But again, really clumsy stuff. A lot of it don't work.
Yeah.
And then they do set up something which is the whole. Well, the government have to take it, and Rhodey's conflict of interest with respect to that because he's such a close friend to Tony, with respect to that, and going with that. But then again, they have this dumb party sequence with them punching each other. It's like it's so dumb.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, well,
none of it
if I could just get to that now, right? So, all right. So in retrospect, I have to say it. They just sort of shoehorn Rudy into this, right? Because he's
Right.
like, you know what, Tony, man, just stop it, man. You're embarrassing yourself, and he gets so mad, right, that he goes into Tony basement where he have the Iron Man suits, and just up on the side to just put on the Mark II suits, right? And then even when I first saw it, I was like, why are we doing this? This
Yeah.
painfully unnecessary fight between Iron Man and War Machine, right? I want to make it even worse, right, for me, right? And I know you agree with me, Daniel. They set it to this DJ Mega Mix shred. So I'm hearing all these great songs.
Yeah.
I hear it. I hear Daft Punk. I'm like, dog, why, Adrian? Why we doing this?
It's Queen and all kind of stuff.
You hear another one bites the dust. You hear it takes two from Rob Bass. I'm like, why are we doing this, Trent? No, stop it, right? But I will say when they fired the repulsor rays and then they had the big sonic boom thing and it blows up, that look cool. Right?
Yeah.
And then Rhodey just basically steal his suit and fly off. But I'll close this, right? I'll make a quote from like what not Double Toasted, what Honest Trailers say, right? Yeah, Rhodey had no experience being able to fly that suit, and yet he able to just fly out it.
Well, I didn't. Well, two things. One, Rhodey's always two things. Tony is the one who's like a loser, when it comes to fighting and physical stuff,
Right.
So like Rhodey will naturally like get this because the suits are intuitive. Like anybody could get in the suits and use them for the most part. Like that's like a common like complaint about the MCU, like why everybody don't wear Iron Man suits. Like, or at least everybody who should be fighting wear Iron Man suits. Like, and it's always implied that only Tony could use them with some kind of skill. No, anybody could go inside them for the most part. Like, it's that. And yeah, so Rhodey's like an experienced pilot and very, very physical and skilled. Like, he had a whole action sequence without a suit in Iron Man 3. He's kick ass.
That's
like,
true.
That,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, but Daniel, Sorry?
When I'm done.
Tony would always say something like, these suits are coded to me or something, and yet
Yeah, no, but
everybody's
I
able
get
to...
that part we get. Like that part we get, but like Tony should just like let other people use suits. Like it just that's kind of dumb. Whatever, it don't really matter.
It is, but yeah, folks, yeah. Y'all agree with me that party scene is still cringe.
Terrible. Yeah, it really to me that was the low point of the movie because like wow, I don't know how the movie could recover from this, and it just building up towards something. And then where they get after, I remember was like, all right, I mean this kind of interesting, but because I don't think the shield stuff don't work particularly well, it's really clumsy stuff. And then the big mystery involving the father is like, all right, that kind of interesting, but like you can just tell him. Like,
yeah, but yeah, speaking of the shield stuff,
Tony couldn't figure out himself.
No, I get that Tony couldn't figure out himself. That is like, why it's a cutting edge technology. I get that part, but he know it. It's a piece of knowledge he telling him. It's not like he didn't know. It's just he didn't have it with the technology. And he had to put his big secret mystery bullshit about the base and the thing. I was like, it was all of this puzzle nonsense. Like you just like hide it in a hard drive or something. Like what the hell? Like it's very clumsy nonsense. Like none of this works. And it tries to frame as this big mystery that he had to hide. But like what? the bad guy's gonna get it. Who gonna get it? What's the problem?
I don't know, but yeah, let's talk about the shield stuff for a bit, right? I understand in retrospect, right, that we need to bring them on, we need to bring them into the story because of how Iron Man ended, right? But I just felt it should have been done a lot smoother, and I also felt like we should have gotten this earlier. Like we should have got like the shield stuff should have been hinted early on, like at the very beginning or like in the first act of the film. Like you wait till the second act begins. Cause yeah, this is essentially we're in second act territory, right? Now you want to bring in shield stuff just out of the blue, right? Now I will say the established shot here I do like. It's a moment that I remember for good reasons, right? Where you're seeing Tony in the Iron Man suit and he eating a box of donuts in the middle of this large donut on top of this donut shop. I like that. I like that visual. I think that works. It's the hangover scene, right? But it's just the idea that it's Tony who is doing this, right? Eating donuts on top of a donut shop. I like that. I take that visually. It's a great moment, right? So props to Justin Theroux, whoever came up with the idea. I think the idea works, right? But yeah, conveniently, this is where Nick Fury spots him. How I don't know. I know Nick Fury know how to find people, but this conveniently just pops up. Okay.
No, but they're watching them. They're watching them all the time. They set that up, right?
Yeah, true. But
then because the Iron Man suit is such a dangerous piece of technology, they had to constantly pay attention to him, keep him in check. And well, it's obviously part of Nick Fury's grander plan. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yes, that.
But that's in terms of pacing, right? Keep in mind this takes place an hour into the film, and this movie is like about 2 hours and like 4 or 5 minutes or thereabout, right? But yeah, an hour into your film and we now getting shield stuff. Come on, you could have brought the stuff early on, right? But yeah, they had to remind us about the Avengers Initiative and Natasha actually works for shield. Woo! Wow, big surprise, right? But yeah, I actually do like the back and forth between Samuel Jackson and Robert Downey Jr. I felt like their chemistry works here, right? And for me, as a Pulp Fiction fan, I couldn't help but see this as a reference to the whole diner scene with Samuel and John Travolta in the morning. It's like that, right? It's the morning time diner scene and they talking shit. That's what it is, right? But
it's a total Pulp Fiction reference.
Yeah, but in retrospect, it really feels like the movie stops, literally stops to remind us, hey, shield stuff and Avengers coming soon, so keep your eye on that. But you literally stopped the film to tell me this, right? So whatever. But yeah, guys, any thoughts on the diner scene? Because it's not a donut shop scene, or is it a donut? No, I think it's a diner, or whatever it is, right? But yeah, any thoughts on that scene or the inclusion, the first inclusion, of Nick Fury in the story?
I just felt that Shield, the way that they put Shield in this movie, it just felt very packed on. It's like, where was she? In fact, I agree that Shield should have been introduced earlier. Like, where were they? Where were they when, like, the government stuff, when they were trying to, like, get the Iron Man tech? It's like, it just felt kind of, tacked on. And maybe they could have done it better, but honestly, I felt like the Shield stuff could have been, I don't know, saved for something else. I don't know.
So here's the thing. This is one of the bigger problems I had with this. So only really thinking about this in retrospect, but at the time, like, they don't have a hierarchy of power in the world. Like, they kind of say, look, just pull out your badges and say, look, we taking all of this, or we controlling all of this. Why did that roadie somehow get a suit to send to the military as a separate contract from SHIELD? Like, you would have think that Nick Fury or whoever it is would have come in and say, watch, you can't take this suit because we have control of the suit because we hired you in the hierarchy of the government or whatever it is, right? Like, this is already established, or this was established later. The hierarchy of power within the US government, she'll have all this control over it is. So they kind of step in, like, they don't have to seize Tony's assets or anything like that. But like, they could secretly do that. Like, they could say, watch now, at least Rhodey, tell Rhodey he can't take this, because how this thing reached to Justin Hammer in the first place to get to that. Like, all of these little things, again, kind of a nitpick in retrospect. God, at the time they didn't think of all of this, clearly. Like, they wanted to keep SHIELD secret and everything, this and that. But like, none of this don't make a lick of sense in terms of like getting the suit, not having to sort it out, and then all of the secret information with the father, because the father was working for SHIELD, presumably. Remember, all of that was in Captain Carter, wherever it is, right? And that whole world building of the US apparatus, or the apparatus of the US, don't make a lick of sense to me. So that's that.
But yeah, back to Ivan and Justin, right? And even back then, and still to this day, I just thought it was a massive letdown just seeing Ivan be downgraded to be this tech guy for Justin, right? Because yeah, the way how this movie was advertised is like, all right, well, yeah, we're gonna see a lot of Whiplash just being a menace, right, and trying to mess up Tony's life, but no, he just there working with Justin, right, and like. Yes, it kind of makes sense, right? Because Justin don't really know anything, or I should say he know enough, but he need extra tech people to make him look good, right? So I get, right? But
Yeah.
it pretty much downgrade the villain, right? And that's why I just have a major issue with Justin Hammer being the main villain. Like he's not Obadiah Steen. Like Obadiah Steen, at least there was a like he looked threatening. He looked like a guy like you don't want to mess with at all, right? And then afterwards you see just how that is emphasized the moment he breaks out his own Iron Man suit, right? So you see that, right? But here is just this talkative douchebag who just talking a lot of shit and paying money to do things, paying people money to do things for them, right? That's what it is. I never once saw him as a threat to the film.
Yeah, well, Justin I agree too. Like Justin Hammer never really felt like he didn't give off like main villain energy. Is Ivan Vanko who's the main villain, and even when like Justin Hammer like brings Ivan to his facility, you could already see how he trying to undermine him. Like when he like went into the suits that he was presenting to him, he blasted through the firewall, and he's like, software shit.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was already kind of like undermining him and being like, hey, I'm the genius here, bro. You the talkative idiot who supplying me with your resources. Like, know your place, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So around this time, around the second act, you really start to feel just how sluggish the movie is because you notice there's not really any action going on, right? You have Ivan pretty much being told what to do by Justin, and he just being sidelined now. And then it just have all these moments that just meant to be funny, but they just fall flat. Even though, to be fair, like the acting is still great, the performances are still great, right? But it's not given much to do. Like there's a moment where you see like Tony tried to reconcile with Pepper because Tony was acting like shit, right? And then you see him like buy this box of strawberries, and then Pepper's like, I'm allergic to strawberries, right? Like that's the one thing I'm allergic to, right? It's like, why are we doing this, right? And yes, we have to talk about the whole Howard Stark reveal thing with the whole Stark Expo map thing, and within this map, and if you listen to what I was saying, like I've been doing all this for you, my son, and all that kind of stuff. It is a huge stretch, right? It's a huge stretch for us to accept the fact that all this blueprints and all this setup that this man was doing from since the 50s or whatever was meant to reveal some unexplored or unrealized element which Tony ended up creating and synthesizing now to help him with the blood toxicity that he's going through right now.
Right.
It's
solve
like
the arc
all of this.
Right. So the implication. Right, so the implication here was that it's the arc reactor is loosely derived off of the
Tesseract.
The Tesseract, right?
Yes.
The space stone, right? And so, like, I find, but then why not just reveal that? I don't know why who he keeping a secret from? From Shield? He was working with Shield. Like, this could have just be a piece of information. I could not follow why this was this big puzzle mystery box thing to solve. This is needlessly convoluted. I could not follow why he had to do it like this.
Agreed.
Right? This is some real like with his, what was the name of this Tomb Raider nonsense.
Oh shit! Yeah. I have to solve some puzzle. Yeah.
Right, I have to hide it from my daughter. Only my daughter should solve it, and I'm going to put it in my books. And it's all this set of cryptic like videos and all kind of thing. Like, what was all this? Where's the point of that?
Yeah.
I could not follow why does he have to do it like that. It's like just put it on a hard drive, hide it somewhere.
Yeah.
At best, have Nick Fury hold it for him, or whatever it is.
Agreed.
Like, whatever.
And in retrospect, before we move on, we had to talk about Agent Coulson and the little that he's given here. He just there just basically to babysit, or sorry, not babysit really, but just to kind of check up on Tony. So you have a moment where, after Tony makes the big reveal, he started set things up, and then Coulson shows up, and all right, okay, so you have a moment where Coulson suddenly discovers, an incomplete version of Captain America's shield, and that just there, just basically shoot on to say, hey, First Avenger coming just now, whee! Look out for that, right? Okay, but what's the point, right? And then afterwards, Coulson leaves now because you say, he's been reassigned to New Mexico. All right. But then you see what happens in the post-credit scene, right?
Advertise for our next movie.
Yeah, which we all sat down for. We all sat down for, and then we see it. It's like, okay.
Listen,
all right.
Listen. Marvel train us like Pavlovian dogs for this, because
I know
absolutely cook. Listen, they absolutely cook when they did it in Iron Man 1. They absolutely cooked when they did it in Iron Man 1. Right? That blew away everybody. So, like, nobody missing that shit. Then they do it with Hulk, and it was kind of cool. Right? When Tony showed up with the bar talking to General Ross. That's kind of cool. But then it is, it's like, all right, well, it's Thor. But then I'm not super hyped for Thor. It's like, all right, I mean, I suppose. But, I don't know that it was leading to Avengers necessarily. Like, I didn't get that at the time. Like, they might do it, maybe. But, like, again, because at the time, we didn't have a sense of, like, long-term plans for this stuff in that sense. Like, well, we might get a third film, maybe. But, like, we had to see a trailer, right? Like, this is back in the days where we saw still. I have that age where I saw accustomed to X-Men and these kind of things being so mediocre. And then, like, it could come out, but it could still be shit. So that's why I wasn't super hyped. It was like, all right, they're making it. But then we get it, so it's cool. Yeah, but advertise for our next movie. They start our nonsense. It is.
Yeah, exactly. So I will say in retrospect that the third act actually is good, right? Things really pick up from
fun.
here. And that's where all the action that we was waiting for and we was expecting some bit of in the second act, but we get none, actually pops up here, right? For one thing, Rhodey actually, the War Machine suit that he has. I like that. And I like that. Okay, there was an earlier moment in the second act which fell flat because they tried to play it all comedic, where Justin is like pretty much selling all these guns and missiles, all that shit. But I like that Rhodey actually took all those weapons, including the real gun. Well, yeah, the real gun, and actually incorporated into the suit. I like that. I actually like that War Machine suit.
I don't know if you catch this in my recording. This is one of the bigger problems I had with the story, which is S.H.I.E.L.D. should have stepped in terms of the organization of this, because they had no world building. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not ahead of this in terms of like getting Iron Man suits under control. So he went straight to the military, which is ridiculous. Like, they should have just passed some letter saying, look, you can't get this, and you definitely can't get it to Justin Hammer. None of this should have happened if S.H.I.E.L.D. was involved in a proper sense. All it could have happened at a bureaucratic level.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
Whatever.
Right. Minigun. That's what I meant to say. Minigun.
Yeah,
right?
great.
Sorry about that. Yeah, like the suit look good. The suit look good, right?
Yeah, look good.
And then you realize, Ivan was playing Justin for a fool. I mean, duh, right? Yeah, basically he had all of his robots pretty much as drones, so he he's able to control them and whatnot. And yeah, shit get real, right? In the Stark Expo, all of Justin's robots, suddenly get active and start to blow up shit or whatnot.
Yeah, we get something retroactive here. Reveal. It's a retroactive reveal. A little boy in an Iron Man mask, and we know who that is.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a Parker.
Total retroactive thing. Yeah, they say that after the fact, years later. But
that was actually that was actually a cool moment. I actually forgot about that, right? But for me, yes, while this sequence, right, this action sequence is high octane, and this is where you spend your money to see it on the big screen for, and you're shoving popcorn in your face. The mere fact that we had to wait so goddamn long for this, boy, is unforgivable. It's unforgivable, right? Yeah, but I mean, the sequence looks great. And I will say, right, that the VFX in this deserves its Oscar nomination. Yes, folks, this was actually nominated for Best Visual Effects, right? But it didn't win. But yeah, I thought that the visual effects were great. Like, just great from throughout, right? Of course, going back to Natasha, yes, she get to show off she Black Widow suit. She look fine as hell in that. Yes, she break into Hammer Industries and kick some ass. Happy get a moment where he fighting one man for like about 3 minutes. And then it edged him. I got him.
I forget.
Like, all right.
I forget we talk about this, but like Ivan obsessing over his bird is the funniest thing ever to me.
Oh yes. We should mention that. Yeah, like I want bird. It's like just like what bird? I can give you another bird. Like I want my bird. I want my bird. And then when he actually get able, it's like, this is not my bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit that's kind of funny, but I felt like they just sort of run it to the ground. Like the moment he gets
Right.
it, it's like, this is not bird, this is not my bird. But anyway,
Yeah.
and yes, prior to the whole fight with Natasha and Happy, yes, there's a moment where Natasha's in the back of in the back seat of Happy's car, undressing, and John Favreau, secretly like lusted over it. I don't believe him, but
Right.
at the same time, it's like, all right, okay, right. Tony and Rhodey get the team up moment, and it's really cool. There is a genuinely badass moment, Dread, where Tony activates these red lasers from his wrists. He do like this samurai pose, and just see like about 60 drones just get sliced. I was like, all right, okay, yeah, this real cool. And the backdrop being this whole Japanese garden with some rose petals in the background, like cherry blossom, whatever it is. That look cool. That look cool and whatnot, right? But yeah, things fall apart now because the last drone that pops up, surprise, surprise, is our upgraded version of one of Justin's ones, but it's with Whiplash inside, right? And yes, you have new and improved whips, okay, cool.
Right.
And there's a moment where Rhodey fire this missile. This is what Justin called the ex-wife. And they just do these cartoony sound effects. So that's when they hit the suit here, ping, and you pew.
Right.
That's kind of funny. Okay, right? But what make this sequence? Hammer Tech, right? But what make that scene pretty cool actually is that Whiplash's whips could actually wrap around like the Iron Man suits though, so he could actually bring them down easy. I like that. That's cool. That's really cool, right? But the problem with this whole scene though is that this shit just runs for about 2-3 minutes. And it's just basically Iron Man and War Machine. They do the whole repulsor ray, sonic boom thing, and that's it. That's how you get killed. All right, that's it. So, outro time, right? Tony and Pepper officially kind of settling into being a couple because this kind of tease it through, like, yeah, we are a couple, but we fight him. But like, nah, after, all the explosions and shit, they kiss and whatnot, right? Tony's assigned to be a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. because Natasha did this assessment of it and saying, textbook narcissism and all that kind of stuff. All right, that's kind of funny. Okay, right? What was really intriguing in retrospect, though, is that there's a moment where Tony and Rhodey have to get medals, right, for saving the day, right, at Stark Expo, right? And Tony asks Nick to pull some strings and get somebody to do it, right? And he picks Senator Stern to do it, right? What makes the scene so interesting in retrospect is that none of our heroes even realize it at the point that, yes, Senator Stern, was a Hydra agent. So Nick didn't know, Rhodey didn't know, and Tony didn't know. So it's just like, hey, I think that's really interesting, though, that nobody at the time realized or pick up on the fact that this man was on some shady shit, from the jump, right? But this is how they actually end the film, right? Like, this is the last moment, and there's a great moment, a kind of moment that meant to be funny where and so shoehorn to it, where you see Senator Stern, end up putting the pin on, like you stick it into Tony's, like, oh, you should be afraid of a little prick, right? And that's how the scene ends. Like, okay,
how annoying a little prick can be.
Yeah, how annoying a little prick could be, and that's the final joke. Okay, all right, and they play a rock song in the end. Okay, but anyway, and then of course the post credit scene with Coulson in New Mexico, and then he sees this large crater, and then right next to it is Thor's hammer. I genuinely wasn't surprised when I first saw that moment. I was like, oh, okay, we're getting a Thor movie. Okay, cool. All right. And that was me. That was how I felt with that post-credit scene, right? But yeah, folks, before we get to final thoughts, any thoughts on just that final sequence and the post-credit scene? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's whoever. Yeah, go ahead. Thing.
I like that, Ricardo. Is whoever. It's whoever.
Yeah, no, like I couldn't get myself to give a shit at this point because, like, well, that was super disappointing. All right, I mean, we're moving on. Because I at this point I was like worried that, oh, this MCU thing gonna fail. This was a big, massive letdown, and I couldn't care less with this ending. It's like, all right, they're setting up Tony and Pepper, I suppose. I mean, it's not that interesting. They have okay chemistry, and so none of it was sticking. And then the post credits was like, all right, well, we're getting a Thor movies, I suppose. Not super excited for that.
But at least you enjoy the final fights, right? At least the action.
I mean, yeah, for the most part, I had like enough fun with it, like for the most part. So it was like, but I compared to like the rest of the movies, like yeah, this is a total mess. So I couldn't listen. Good action, we can't listen. We're just having these arguments with Transformers. Good action, if it's not tied to a good story and characters, you don't give a shit. It's just fucking noise on screen, right? Sorry to say
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like you gotta come damn good with that action for me to not care about it without the characters working. Right? If a mediocre action sequence with characters I give a shit about is way more important. Way more important, right? And that's what this was. It was an alright enough action sequence. It didn't blow me away, but it was like, hey, the special effects good. At the time, this was still pretty impressive special effects. And that was it. So it's about it. But I couldn't care about anything going into this, coming out of this as it was. So that was me about it.
Right. So yeah, Daniel, your thoughts on the final act, the action, and the post-credit scene.
Well, War Machine just pissing bullets at the hammer drones. Yeah,
Right.
it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. What am I to say? It's like John Favreau, bro. You kind of did your best, and you was probably overruled by higher ups by
Right.
whatever story you wanted to tell, and it's like I know that they needed to wrap things up. It's like okay, you have Tony and Pepper with their will they won't they dynamic. Okay, they will. And then you have this little one-liner from your War Machine on the roof, like it wasn't a question. I'm taking your suit because my
Right.
car got blown up. Like it's like okay, some nice gags. I guess overall underwhelming. How everything kind of wrapped up is like okay, on to the next thing. On to the next thing with the Thor tease. And I think at the time they did announce the Thor film. I think, and
Right.
I was like kind of at that age, I was like kind of hyping myself up for the next Thor movie. It's like who they gonna cast as Thor, and then they got who they got. So yeah, moving on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
moving on. So overall, as a sequel, Iron Man 2 is a massive step down for the original, right? Yes, I will admit it does the sequel thing where you have to take your protagonist and put him in that dark place and explore your character, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it doesn't really do much with that anyway, because all we just get is just blood toxicity and, Tony just trying to find ways to deal with that. But, it is his narcissism, yes, because yeah, he is a bit of a narcissist. Yeah, that puts him in all these weird situations, right? Also, it's not as fun as the first film was, though, which is kind of sad when you
Yeah.
really think about it, right? It just sort of takes itself a little too seriously, right? Which, yes, is something that you could expect in sequels, right? But sequels could still be fun, even if, like, especially when the previous film was fun, right? Like, it could go into deeper, darker territory, but it could still have that fun summer blockbuster essence to it. But I didn't really get that here, right? The VFX is great, though, by 2010 standards, and it is well deserving of its Oscar nomination. I thought that the acting was solid for the most part from everybody, but it's really the script, though. That is the weakness of it, right? Really, when you think about it, there isn't really much going on with the story, right? And it's just spending so much time doing world building and setting up teams and conceits for upcoming films and all that kind of stuff, but little on execution moments of like tension and action, right? Whiplash and Justin Hammer are terrible villains, like because Whiplash isn't given much to do at all, which I thought was a massive letdown. And I thought that Justin Hammer couldn't even come close to Obadiah Stane. At least Obadiah Stane was threatening. There was something that
Yeah.
like you didn't want to fuck with this guy at all. Justin just felt like this douchebag who was just talking a lot of shit. I forgot to mention with Justin. Plus, Justin get arrested, and that's the end of it. He just get arrested.
Right.
That's it. He didn't
Which
die
they
in
don't
an Iron Man suit. He just get arrested.
Yeah, they don't pay him off later because I think he shows up in some shorts at some point. That is with
Yeah.
A
that's
short?
about it,
All
right?
hail the
Yeah,
hail
that's
the
it.
king with Ben. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you mean
That's it.
you mean like the short that was made for Iron Man 3? He was there?
Well, it was after Iron Man 3, I think.
Well, you
Because
see, I
Ben
mean,
Kingsley was already there.
okay. Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, and
He was
so
in the- he
you
was
do
in
nothing
the
with him.
gun
And
with-
I was at least hoping he could show up for like a potential what do you call it, Thunderbolts or something like that. Like, oh, he'll show up in that because he's like he get out of jail. He's still a moneyed weirdo. Like they could play with that and that idea. Probably. I thought he was maybe going to show up, but we don't know if this series is still making, which is the War Machine series. Don't know.
Oh, right,
but
right.
Don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
this just totally like erases character. It's not like I'm a some big character. He was funny in it, and it's like a shame that you couldn't get a good script with him. No,
That's
however,
true, yeah. Yeah, so that's to
yeah,
wrap things up, right? So in retrospect, I felt like Marvel Studios really should have taken more time in fleshing out the story, right? Because keep that in mind, right? This is this is the third MCU film, right? The third one, right? So like this is how I would have seen it, right? So Thor, which is the fourth one, this should have come out before this. So at least Marvel Studios would have had more time to really come up with a proper story for Iron Man 2. I felt they just jumped the gun too quick because people love Iron Man, so they want more, right? But no, all they're building a universe take all their time. That's why I say they could have given us Thor first and then given us Iron Man 2. And then you follow that up with Captain America, the first Avenger, and then you end the phase with Avengers. But no, it's like, no, people want more Iron Man, so we give them that. But nah, this is us. This is just to wrap things up. This is a story and a film that just really feels that feels really undercooked. And they just could have spent more time in the kitchen really putting this thing together, just making sure it is, the dish that we all deserve, right? So yeah, in retrospect, rating wise, I'll give this a strong 2.5 out of 5. See it if you want to, as far like let me just put it like this, right? If you like want to recap the progression of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you could gladly skip this one. This is like a filler episode, pretty much, if you want to call it that. If you're a first timer and you never saw it, I would say watch it. But trust me, after you see it once, you wouldn't have any need to see it again. I'll close this, right? And in retrospect, what makes this show even more of a massive feeler dread is that it just ultimately feels like it didn't add anything to the grander story that's being built, right? It doesn't add to what we will see with Captain America or the Avengers or Thanos or anything like that. It just feels like just this one-off story that was just kind of meant to capitalize off the success of the first film, but didn't really add anything new or fresh to the table. It was just like, yeah, we just did it because fuck you, here it is, and it's just forgettable, right? And yeah, I could see why a lot of if you go online, right, like a lot of lists, and I'll bring it up with my intro for Age of Ultron. Yeah, a lot of lists as far as ranking MC movies go. Yeah, a lot of lists have this as the worst one, as the one at the lowest, right? But there are a few lists out there where that isn't even the worst one. But I'll get to that in a bit, right? But yeah, strong 2.5 out of 5. See it if you want to. But yeah, Ricardo, final thoughts, looking back at it now, or thinking about it now, and rating.
Yeah, as I say, I'm going to do a hot take, which is that this movie needed to exist for the MCU to be as good as it was. But it's still a takeaway from this movie being as bad as it was. Like, it's just such a step down from the first Iron Man, and yeah, it was like, wow, they just suffer from all the problems that you'll have with these kind of sequels, and just I put this as low as some of the crappier movies in the early 2000s, so when that early wave of comic book thing, where they were supposed to step up and they stepped down, and this was them effing up, when you shift gear bad, and the car just stop and grind to a halt when you're driving manual. That's basically what it is. You're supposed to shift gears and make it work, and it's the exact opposite. They shift down in the wrong way, and the car just grind to a halt, and they didn't press the clutch properly. That's my car metaphor. It sucked. Moving on. Rating, I don't know, like a 5 out of 10 or whatever.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. 5 out of 10 is charitable. It is, right? Yeah. So Daniel, final thoughts. Looking back at it though, and written.
Okay, so looking back, I need to mention Jon Favreau's other film, Chef, because
Right.
that film is like, you could see that that was made basically with him kind of coming to terms with his creativity being stifled, and probably this film had something to do with that. It's like, I don't think that he got to make the film that he wanted to make.
Right.
I think if the movie was more thematically focused, like if the movie wanted to focus on Tony's legacy with the Iron Man suit, it's like, okay, that's a good theme to follow up on. And the Justin Hammer and Ivan Vanko, they could have been good antagonists to flesh out, to attack the theme. It's like, yeah, this one was just disappointing all around. The Shield stuff just felt very tacked on. And Jon Favreau, I love you. I love you as a filmmaker. You made some really good movies, but yeah, this one I could feel your creativity being stifled. Overall, this one was this was disappointing compared to the most excellent first Iron Man movie. And overall, I would give this a 6 out of 10. Disappointed.
Oh wow, 6 out of 10. Wow, you be real charitable boy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't hate it as much. I don't hate it as much as like Thor: The Dark World. I think I would rank Thor: The Dark World a little bit lower than this. But it's I enjoyed the action and the visual effects. Like Olio mentioned, the script needed work, but I'll give it the 6. I give it the 6.
Okay, fair enough.
That was
Right? Yeah.